Bad news for Toys R Us kids. This week, the beloved toy retailer filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in order to restructure its outstanding debts. And outstanding they are. Toys R Us is looking to restructure $5 billion in long-term debts. The company has received a commitment of $3 billion in debt financing from various lenders, and courts have authorized $2.2 billion in financing to support operations during their bankruptcy process. Fortunately for employees and customers alike, business should continue as usual for the time being. The idea behind filing for bankruptcy is that it would allow the company to refinance their debt, giving them the ability to invest more in the business than in their interest. So while it's probably not a great situation for the retailer, Christmas is not canceled quite yet. And that's about all there is for real news, so it's time to fall back on the good old standby, trailers. This week we got the first trailer for the Tomb Raider movie reboot, which looks astonishingly similar to the Tomb Raider video game reboot. No complaints there though, it'll be like watching an abridged Let's Play. And going from movies based on video games to video games based on anime, Dragon Ball FighterZ gave us our first glimpse of the game's story mode. It seems that a mysterious new enemy has shown up to beat our heroes into the ground, forcing them to rally and save the day with the help of a brand new character. Also teasing their story this week was Sonic Forces. It seems that a mysterious new enemy has shown up to beat our heroes into the ground, forcing them to rally and save the day with the help of a new character. And as an extra bit of Sonic news, some additional content is coming to Sonic Forces in the form of Episode Shadow DLC, a free side game featuring everybody's most kind of tolerated anti-hero, Shadow the Hedgehog. Okay, yeah, Shadow is pretty lame, but the gameplay here shows that he plays slightly different from Sonic, so maybe he'll find a real place in the franchise yet. And now for things closer to release, hitting theaters this week is American Made. Tom Cruise does Tom Cruise things, this time as an American pilot running drugs for the CIA. Meanwhile, on the horror side of things, there's Flatliners. Ellen Page and her friends play around with death, and, well, it looks like death starts playing back. It could be fun, and it definitely looks spooky. Over on television, Star Trek finally returns to the airwaves on CBS for one episode before it moves exclusively to CBS's streaming service. Over on Fox, Lethal Weapon is back for its second season. It's not the movies, but it is Fox's second funniest cop show. The first, of course, being Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which returns for its fifth season, and it's a good night for laughs because The Mix starts its second season on the same night. I hadn't heard of this show before last week, but I caught an episode and it is pretty good. Back on CBS, I guess it didn't take long for David Boreanaz to find a new gig. SEAL Team looks kind of intense, actually. I guess we'll see how it plays out. On the opposite side of the serious spectrum, Baby MacGyver is back for its second season. I mean, I like Lucas Till, but come on. Over on Crackle, Startup looks to be a show that reminds me of Sons of Anarchy, but with computer programmers, and I'm not just saying that because they're bringing in Ron Perlman for the second season. Okay, yes I am. Over on ABC, there's Marvel's Inhumans, and not that there's a chance of it anyway, but don't get too attached. Rumor has it that the show has already been cancelled, and we'll all probably spend the next few months dissecting exactly where it all went wrong. Finally, back on Fox, The Exorcist, which had a surprisingly good first season, is back for a second. Although, if there are two of them, shouldn't it really be called The Exorcists at this point? And in video games, this week on PC, we're starting off with what is sure to be an RPG Maker classic, You Doesn't Exist, boasting a typical RPG Maker quest in a typical RPG Maker world. Or is it? I mean, yeah, it probably is, but who knows? Also on the RPG Maker side of things, Crimson Sword Saga Tactics Part 1. Ambitious title for a Fire Emblem clone, but hey, best luck to them. And while Steam may be flooded with low-quality visual novels, Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony at least looks to be on the higher quality end of the genre. And if that's not enough Japanese high school in your video games, there's Blue Reflection, a JRPG about... I'm not entirely sure, but it looks pretty. For something a little more simple, Doodle Jamboree is kind of a puzzle platformer? I'm not entirely sure. You take control of this turtle in a hat? I'm not entirely sure about that either. Whatever it is and whoever you are though, it looks kinda neat. Heading into outer space, Eve Valkyrie Warzone takes the VR out of the game, opening up the space combat to all of us poor people without VR equipment. And if you've got a hankering to kill some Nazis, and really, who doesn't these days, Raid World War II is a 4-player co-op shooter that, among other things, got John Cleese to do their advertising. From the creators of Torchlight, Hob is a neat-looking overhead adventure game about a thing with a thing on his arm running around a world of other things. Just stop paying attention to me, watch the trailer to see if it's up your alley. For this week's obligatory tower defense game, Tiny Toy Fair is a tower defense FPS hybrid that seems to let you take manual control of the turrets, which is kind of against the point of having the towers, but whatever, there's a dinosaur on fire. Speaking of which, Total War Warhammer 2. If you're looking for an RTS with lizard men riding dinosaurs, I'm not sure where else you're gonna go, so... And in multiplayer games, Stick Fight the game makes a competitive fighter out of the old school internet cartoons, so that could be fun. But if you want to go solo, Zombie Solitaire 2 Chapter 2 continues the Zombie Solitaire 2 adventure with what has to be a surprising amount of gameplay because, it's solitaire. And speaking of adding on to old games, Rage Ball is Pong with more variables and pretty graphics, and Breakout is Breakout with more variables and pretty graphics. BladeNet is a kind of a cool looking version of virtual hide-and-seek set in a cyberpunk world, and finally, at long last, Cuphead is finally ready to launch. And it's releasing on Steam, which kinda surprised me because I thought this was exclusive to Xbox and Windows 10. No joke, this game was half the reason I was okay with upgrading to Windows 10. Oh well, I'm glad it's finally coming out. Wrapping things up with this week's CGBros video, we have The Story of an Idea by Nexus Studios, a cool little animation that grows with the story. And finally, in this week's awesome video, Austin from the Game Theorists has some truth bombs to drop about the nature of the Metroids and the alien bird god people that created them.
The Chozo, these old and wrinkly as balls aliens, created Metroids and unleashed them onto SR-388. But why? That's like finding out Yoda created the aliens from Alien and then dropped them into a ship to massacre space marines.
That's everything for this week. So were you a Toys R Us kid? What's your favorite toy store memory? Share it in the comments. Mine was getting a ton of clearance Beast Wars figures when our KB Toys went out of business. Be sure to like and subscribe, pass this video around to your friends, and have a great week.